Dog found a wounded enemy and alerted his owner. What happened next changed everything. The sun hung low over the dusty horizon of Urindor, painting the barren plains in shades of orange and brown. Commander Elias Voss stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the last light fade. The wind was dry, carrying dust and the faint scent of scorched metal from the mining outposts nearby. Beside him, Rex padded quietly, ears twitching, nose low to the ground. The dog's cybernetic enhancements gave him senses far beyond those of a normal canine, but he always moved with a grace that made him appear natural, almost like he belonged to the planet itself. Elias had come to rely on Rex more than any human companion. The dog was not just a pet or a soldier's tool. He seemed to understand Elias in ways that went beyond programming. They had saved each other countless times in the last 4 years on the frontier. Today, however, Rex seemed uneasy. He was sniffing the air with more intensity than usual, glancing back at Elias as if to say, "Come, you need to see this." "Rex, what is it?" Elias asked, crouching slightly to get a better view of the ground. The dog growled softly and bolted toward a ridge a few hundred meters away. Elias followed, the weight of his sidearm at his hip reminding him to be careful. When they reached the top of the ridge, Rex froze. Ahead, partially hidden in the dry brush, was a creature that made Elias pause. It was wounded, lying on its side, breathing heavily. Its skin shimmered faintly, a strange mix of green and silver scales, and its eyes, intelligent and aware, met his gaze. Elias' first instinct was to reach for his weapon. The Xipherians were dangerous, stealthy, clever, and deadly when cornered. But something about the creature's posture told him it was not attacking. Rex, for his part, approached cautiously, nose low, tail stiff. He circled the alien once, then returned to Elias, whining softly, a behavior Elias had trained him out of years ago. But now the sound seemed urgent, pleading almost. Elias lowered his weapon and knelt. "All right, Rex," he whispered. "Let's see what we've got." The Xipherian made a low, clicking sound, not aggressive, but almost like a groan. Its limb was bent at an unnatural angle, and the creature's breathing was shallow. Elias realized that this was no ordinary encounter. If he called for backup, the militia would likely shoot first and ask questions later. But he also knew that ignoring this wounded alien could cost them valuable intelligence, or worse, invite the wrath of the Xipherians later. He looked at Rex, who seemed to be nodding in his own dog way, as if to confirm Elias' thoughts. With a deep breath, Elias moved slowly forward, hands visible, signaling he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. The alien watched him, eyes wary but not hostile. Its clicking sounds grew a little louder, almost like it was responding. Elias knew he had to make a choice quickly. The sun was setting, and darkness would bring danger, both from the wild predators of Urindor and from any Xipherian scouts nearby. He scanned the horizon, then gently motioned for Rex to stay back. The dog obeyed reluctantly, sitting and watching intently. "Easy," Elias said, kneeling closer. He could see now that the alien's skin was scraped, some scales missing, exposing tender flesh beneath. It had been in a fight, maybe with another Xipherian or some mechanical predator. He reached out slowly, letting the creature sniff his hand. For a moment it stiffened, ready to strike. Then, with a hesitant motion, it pressed its nose lightly against his fingers. Rex barked softly, a sound of approval, and Elias smiled faintly. "Good boy," he whispered. "Looks like we've got a friend for now." He realized the alien couldn't walk on its own. Carrying it would be dangerous, but leaving it was not an option. Using his jacket and some rope from his pack, he fashioned a makeshift sling. Rex helped by nudging and guiding the alien gently. Slowly, carefully, they made their way back to the settlement. The journey was tense. Every shadow seemed to move, every rustle of the wind set Elias on edge. The frontier was harsh, and predators, both alien and human, were not forgiving, but the dog's keen senses kept them safe. At one point, Rex stopped abruptly, growling low. Elias froze. In the distance, he saw movement, a group of figures approaching. The militia. They had likely detected the alien's presence. Elias didn't have time to explain. He adjusted the sling, keeping the Xipherian close, and motioned for Rex to circle behind them. The dog obeyed, silent as the wind, guiding them through a narrow gorge where the human group could not follow easily. By the time they reached the edge of the settlement, the militia had lost sight of them. Inside the small command center, Elias laid the alien on a reinforced medical bed. He patched the creature's injuries as best he could, using antiseptic sprays and synthetic bandages. The alien clicked softly, observing every motion. Its eyes were intelligent, curious, and wary. Elias had treated wounded animals and humans, but nothing like this. The Xipherian seemed to understand what he was doing, its small body tense but compliant. Hours passed. The sun had disappeared, leaving the settlement bathed in cold, artificial light. Elias sat back, exhausted, rubbing his eyes. Rex lay next to the alien, keeping watch. Then, unexpectedly, the Xipherian made a sound that almost resembled a word. Elias leaned closer, listening. It was broken, imperfect, but it sounded like it was trying to communicate. "Wait," he whispered. "Are you trying to talk to me?" The creature clicked again, then pointed a trembling limb toward a small device on Elias' table. It was a translator unit not powered on. Elias turned it on and handed it to the alien. To his surprise, it pressed its claw lightly against the buttons, and a weak mechanical voice emerged. "Help us! War!" Elias' heart skipped a beat. War? The Xipherians had been quiet in this sector for years. They were supposed to be avoiding human colonies. And yet here was one, wounded, trying to warn him. He looked at Rex, whose ears were perked, eyes sharp. The dog seemed to sense the importance of the moment. Elias realized something then. This was not just a wounded enemy. It was a messenger, a scout, perhaps even a key to preventing conflict. But trusting it completely could also be dangerous. If the Xipherian was lying, or if it had accomplices nearby, the settlement could be in grave danger. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "All right, Rex," he muttered. "We've got a long night ahead." The dog nudged his hand, as if to say, "We'll handle it together." Elias nodded. Outside, the wind blew across the barren plains, carrying dust and distant echoes of creatures stirring in the dark. Inside the command center, human and alien faced each other, connected by fragile trust and mutual need. In that quiet, tense room, Elias knew one thing clearly. Whatever happened next could change everything, not just for him, but for the people of Urindor and perhaps all of human space. As the night deepened, the alien began to click and gesture more confidently, using the translator to convey small words and ideas. Elias realized that understanding this creature could unlock secrets humanity had never imagined. Every second mattered. The wrong move could start a war, but the right one could save countless lives. And Rex, loyal and vigilant, rested his head near the alien, a silent reminder that sometimes courage came in the form of a companion who could sense what humans could not. By dawn, Elias had made a decision. He would protect the alien, learn its secrets, and do everything he could to prevent bloodshed. But he also knew that the settlement would not remain quiet forever. Scouts, war parties, or rogue soldiers might come. The line between friend and foe had never been thinner. Elias looked down at Rex, then back at the Xipherian, who was now blinking slowly, trying to rest. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we start figuring out the truth, together." Outside, the barren world of Urindor remained unchanged. But inside that small command center, something extraordinary had begun. A bond, fragile but powerful, had formed between human, dog, and alien. And as the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, Elias felt a spark of hope. A spark that sometimes humanity could rise to meet the impossible, guided by empathy, courage, and unexpected alliances. The frontier was dangerous, unpredictable, and merciless. But for the first time in a long time, Elias believed that, maybe, humans and their loyal companions could change the course of history. The sun rose slowly over Urindor, casting a pale light across the dusty plains. Commander Elias Voss stood near the command center's observation window, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rex sat beside him, tail swishing quietly, alert for any movement. The night had been long and tense. Elias had spent hours helping the Xipherian communicate, slowly understanding fragments of its language. Each new word brought more questions and more hope. The alien, now slightly stronger, had introduced itself in broken sounds and gestures. Its name was difficult for Elias to pronounce, but it answered when he spoke to it. Despite the wound, it moved carefully around Rex, who had become both guard and guide. The dog seemed to sense the alien's intentions perfectly, standing between it and any potential danger. "Rex," Elias whispered, "we need to prepare. If the militia finds out we're harboring this alien, it could start a war before we even understand what's happening." Rex tilted his head and growled softly. Elias smiled. His partner always understood. By mid-morning, the alien began to provide clearer information. Its people, the Xipherians, were not planning an attack on human settlements. The recent skirmishes were caused by a small faction of their kind, rogue warriors who ignored the main group's wishes. The wounded Xipherian had been a scout sent to find humans who could be trusted and warn them about the rogue faction's movements. Elias listened intently, realizing that what the alien said could prevent a war. But the task ahead was dangerous. Not only did they have to understand the alien fully, they had to convince the human militia, and possibly others in the human alliance, that the information was true. And the rogue Xipherians would not hesitate to attack if they discovered this alien alive. The day passed with preparation. Elias and the alien worked together using maps and data from the settlement's sensors. Rex stayed close, alert at every sound. When the sun began to dip toward the horizon again, Elias knew it was time to move. The alien's information was urgent. Waiting any longer could give the rogue faction the advantage. They left the settlement quietly, moving along narrow canyons and hidden trails. Rex led the way, sniffing the air for danger. The alien moved carefully, leaning on Elias when necessary. Every shadow, every rustle of the wind put them on alert. At one point, a low hiss echoed from behind a ridge. Elias froze. Rex growled, hackles raised. A group of rogue Xipherians appeared, moving swiftly toward them. Elias motioned for the alien to stay low and whispered to Rex. The dog responded instantly, darting forward, barking sharply, and then retreating to confuse the attackers. Elias realized that Rex's quick thinking could give them the time needed to escape. The rogue Xipherians were fast, but they were not as clever as the humans who had survived countless frontier battles. Using the terrain to his advantage, Elias led the group through a narrow gorge where the enemies could not easily follow. The rogue Xipherians snarled and clicked in frustration, unable to reach them. Elias moved quickly, keeping the alien behind him, guiding it through every twist and turn. Rex stayed close, lunging to distract anyone who got too near. Finally, they reached a high ridge overlooking a valley. From here, they could see the militia outpost where Elias planned to deliver the alien's message. But approaching openly would be dangerous. He needed a plan that relied on intelligence, not brute force. "Rex, stay with him," Elias whispered. The dog obeyed, nudging the alien gently. Elias scanned the valley, noting guard patterns and patrols. Then, with careful timing, he led them down a hidden path, avoiding open ground. Every step required focus, patience, and trust in Rex's instincts. They reached the edge of the outpost just as the sun disappeared, leaving shadows long and dark. Elias activated a small communication device and called the commander of the militia, speaking quietly so no one else could hear. He explained that he had an urgent message from a Xipherian who could prevent a larger conflict. There was silence on the line. Then the commander's voice came through, skeptical but willing to listen. Elias carefully guided the alien forward. Using the translator, the Xipherian shared the locations of the rogue faction, their numbers, and their next likely moves. The commander was astonished. He had expected hostility, not cooperation. "Can we trust this information?" the commander asked. Elias looked at the Xipherian, who nodded firmly, its eyes steady. Rex growled softly, a protective warning, as if reinforcing the alien's honesty. Elias took a deep breath. "If we act quickly, we can stop the rogue faction before they strike, but we need full cooperation. No one attacks without orders." The commander hesitated, then agreed. Preparations began immediately. Over the next several hours, humans and Xipherians worked together, coordinated by Elias and the alien. Scouts were sent, patrols repositioned, and defensive measures strengthened. Rex ran along the perimeter, helping keep everyone alert, his senses warning of any approaching threat. The dog's loyalty and intelligence made him invaluable, not just as a companion, but as a guardian of this fragile alliance. Just before dawn, the rogue Xipherians appeared, expecting an easy strike against unprepared humans. Instead, they were met with precise coordination, defensive traps, and counterattacks that minimized harm while forcing them to retreat. The battle was short, clever, and effective. Not a single human life was lost. The rogue faction, frustrated and outmaneuvered, withdrew to unknown territory. Elias watched from the ridge, Rex at his side, as the retreating figures disappeared into the distance. He felt a surge of pride. not just for his own leadership, but for the way humans with intelligence, courage, and compassion had turned a potential disaster into a victory. The Zypherian looked at him, clicking softly, as if acknowledging the achievement. "Good work, Rex," Elias said, patting the dog's head. Rex wagged his tail, eyes bright, clearly proud of their success. The Zypherian moved closer, touching Elias' arm gently, a gesture of trust and friendship. For the first time, Elias understood how meaningful this bond could be, not just for survival, but for the future. In the following days, the settlement became a center of communication between humans and the Zypherians. Scouts and diplomats from both sides visited, learning from one another. What began as a dangerous encounter with a wounded enemy had grown into an alliance that promised stability and understanding. And Rex, loyal and brave, remained by Elias' side, a reminder that courage and empathy often came from unexpected places. The frontier world of Erendor continued to be harsh and unforgiving, but inside the command center, hope flourished. Elias realized that humanity's strength was not only in weapons or technology, but in their ability to understand, adapt, and form connections, even with those they had once considered enemies. The Zypherian eventually recovered fully and became a permanent ambassador between their people and the human settlements. The rogue faction had retreated, but the lessons learned remained. Empathy, intelligence, and courage could change the course of history. And Rex, the dog who had first found the wounded alien, was celebrated not only as a hero, but as a bridge between species, a symbol of trust, loyalty, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Elias watched the sunset, Rex lying contentedly at his feet, and the Zypherian standing nearby. For the first time in years, he felt a true sense of peace. The frontier was still dangerous, unpredictable, and wild, but the impossible had been achieved. A bond had formed across species, an alliance had been born, and humanity had shown why they could rise above fear, hate, and violence. As the night fell and stars emerged over Erendor, Elias whispered softly, "We did it, Rex. Together, we really did it." Rex responded with a quiet bark, tail wagging, as if agreeing wholeheartedly. And in that moment, the commander knew one simple truth: humanity, with courage, empathy, and loyalty, could change worlds, not just survive on them. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the alliance that had been formed. The frontier was still vast and dangerous, but hope had taken root. And sometimes, that was all a human needed to achieve the extraordinary. The peace that had settled over the Erendor frontier was fragile. Even after the rogue Zypherians had retreated, Commander Elias Voss knew that the universe was unpredictable. Every day brought new challenges, new threats, and new opportunities. He had learned to trust Rex and his unusual companion, the recovered Zypherian, whose name he had slowly learned to pronounce: Zyra. Zyra had become more than just an ambassador between species. It had become a friend, a guide, and a teacher. The alien shared insights about the Zypherian culture, their technology, and their thinking patterns. Elias absorbed everything carefully, knowing that knowledge was the key to survival on the frontier. And Rex, ever vigilant, remained at his side, eyes scanning every shadow, ears twitching at the slightest sound. One morning, a strange signal appeared on the settlement scanners. Elias frowned as he studied it. It was weak, intermittent, and encrypted in a code unfamiliar to him. Zyra leaned over the console, examining it with bright, alert eyes. "Not human?" Elias asked quietly. The alien shook its head, clicking softly. "Not Zypherian either," it added, tapping the console in rapid, precise motions. Rex growled softly, sensing something in the air. Elias understood immediately. The signal meant a new presence in the sector, something unknown, possibly dangerous. He activated the communication channels, trying to reach nearby outposts, but there was no response. The signal seemed isolated, like a lone scout or probe. Elias gathered his team in the command center. They were small in number, but well-trained. He explained the situation, emphasizing caution and intelligence. "We don't know what this is," he said. "It could be friendly or it could be hostile. We act carefully and we rely on what we know, our senses, our instincts, and our experience." Rex barked, almost as if agreeing, and Zyra nodded. The alien's presence was reassuring. Humans had survived countless challenges because they were adaptable and inventive, but the frontier demanded vigilance. This unknown signal was just another test of that adaptability. They prepared a small scout ship for investigation. Elias would pilot it with Zyra and Rex accompanying him. The journey was tense. The signal led them to a canyon deep in uncharted territory. The walls were jagged, carved by ancient forces, and the shadows were long and dark. Rex moved cautiously, sniffing the air, ears pricked. Zyra studied the surroundings with an intensity that Elias could not match. As they approached the source, the signal grew stronger. Then, suddenly, a structure emerged from the canyon floor. It was sleek and metallic, unlike any human or Zypherian design. Strange lights flickered along its surface, and its shape seemed to shift subtly as if alive. Elias felt a shiver of anticipation. This was not a natural formation. Someone or something had built this. Rex growled low, standing between Elias and the structure. Zyra tilted its head, making a soft, clicking sound. Elias realized that trust and caution were both essential here. They approached slowly, scanning for movement for any signs of life. The ship's sensors indicated no life forms inside, but the energy readings were high. Elias activated the ship's external lights, and a small mechanical arm extended, touching the surface. A sudden pulse of energy shot through the scanner. The lights on the structure flared, and a low hum filled the canyon. Then a door opened silently, revealing a smooth corridor lined with unknown technology. Zyra stepped forward cautiously, clicking softly. Elias followed with Rex at his side, tail low but alert. The corridor seemed empty, yet alive in its own way. Panels shifted subtly, lights moving like the heartbeat of a living being. Elias realized that this was not just a machine, it was intelligent. Deeper inside, they found a central chamber. In the middle was a console that activated as they approached. Symbols and lights flashed across it, and the air hummed with energy. Elias recognized the feeling immediately. This was advanced technology, far beyond human or Zypherian design. It was alien, completely alien. Zyra studied the console, clicking rapidly. Elias watched, fascinated. The alien's eyes glowed faintly as it interfaced with the device. Slowly, the symbols changed, translating into forms they could understand. The console was a communication hub, a beacon that had been sending signals across the sector for decades. Someone, or something, had been waiting for contact. Suddenly the lights dimmed and a voice echoed through the chamber. It was not human or Zypherian, but intelligible, resonating directly in their minds. "You are the first to arrive. You are trusted." Elias swallowed hard. Rex growled low, sensing the unfamiliar presence, while Zyra clicked rapidly, its eyes wide. Elias stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "We come in peace. We are humans allied with Zypherians." The voice responded immediately, understanding without translation. "Peace is the path forward. Knowledge must be shared. Danger approaches." Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. This was bigger than any frontier challenge he had faced. Unknown entities, intelligence far beyond anything humans or Zypherians had encountered, and a warning of danger approaching. He realized that their frontier settlement was now at the center of something monumental. Over the next hours, the console transmitted data, revealing star maps, information about distant civilizations, and warnings of a threat moving through the sector. Elias studied everything carefully. Zyra assisted, providing insights that allowed him to understand patterns in the data. Rex stayed vigilant, guarding them against surprise attacks, his instincts sharper than any sensor. By nightfall, Elias made a decision. They could not return to the settlement with this knowledge unprepared. The unknown threat, whatever it was, could strike at any time. They had to act intelligently, relying on what humans did best: strategy, creativity, and courage. The next day, Elias led a team, with Zyra and Rex, to reinforce the settlement's defenses. Using the alien data, they created traps, barriers, and early warning systems that could detect any approach by the mysterious threat. Humans and Zypherians worked together, sharing skills and knowledge. It was a display of ingenuity, patience, and cooperation, traits that no hostile force could easily overcome. Weeks passed, and the frontier remained tense. Strange signals continued to appear, and unusual phenomena occurred in the skies above Urindor. But the settlement thrived. Humans, Zypherians, and their loyal companion Rex proved that even in uncertainty, intelligence and unity could prevail. Then one night, the threat finally arrived. Shadows moved across the plains, and strange ships descended from the sky, their forms unfamiliar, their energy readings high. Elias, Zyra, and Rex were ready. The settlement's defenses, enhanced by human creativity and Xipherian insight, were in place. They did not rely solely on weapons. They relied on strategy, ingenuity, and adaptability. The first contact was tense. The unknown ships hovered, scanning the settlement, assessing the humans and Xipherians. Elias stepped forward, holding a small signaling device. He activated it, broadcasting a message in multiple languages: human, Xipherian, and the unknown. He relied on understanding, not force. Rex stood at his side, growling low but calm, a presence that communicated loyalty and confidence. To Elia's astonishment, the unknown entities paused. The lights on their ships shifted, almost like recognition. The voice from the console echoed again in their minds. They understand. They are prepared. They will survive. Using the knowledge they had gathered, Elias negotiated cautiously, using intelligence rather than aggression. The unknown entities, curious and cautious, withdrew from direct conflict. They did not attack, but their presence remained, a reminder that the universe was vast, dangerous, and filled with forces beyond human comprehension. Elias watched the ships disappear into the distance. Zyra clicked softly, a sound of relief and respect. Rex barked, tail wagging as if celebrating their success. Elias knew that this was not the end, far from it. But he also knew that humanity, guided by courage, intelligence, and loyalty, had faced the impossible and emerged stronger. The frontier remained wild, unpredictable, and challenging. But for Elias, Zyra, and Rex, hope had grown stronger. Knowledge, cooperation, and trust had turned fear into opportunity. And in that vast, dangerous universe, humans had proven once again why they could rise above challenges, protect their friends, and forge bonds that could change the course of history. Elias stood on the ridge overlooking the settlement, Rex at his side, Zyra nearby. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the extraordinary bond that had formed. They had faced enemies, navigated the unknown, and survived against odds no one else could. And in that moment, Elias knew the truth. Humanity, guided by intelligence, empathy, and courage, could shine even in the darkest corners of the universe. The wind carried the scent of the plains, the hum of the distant mountains, and the quiet rhythm of life that persisted against all odds. Elias whispered softly, "We're ready, Rex. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Rex barked once, sharply, tail wagging as if answering, "Yes, we will." Zyra clicked in agreement, and together the three of them watched the stars, ready for whatever adventures awaited. The frontier had changed forever. Humanity had risen, not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and loyalty. And somewhere in the vastness of the universe, the unknown entities had learned that humans were Erendor's horizon glowed pale orange as the first rays of dawn touched the settlement. Commander Elias Voss walked along the ridge, Rex trotting faithfully at his side, ears alert to the soft rustle of the wind. Zyra moved beside them, now fully recovered and standing tall, its shimmering scales reflecting the morning light. Despite the calm, Elias felt a tension he could not shake. The unknown entities they had encountered were gone, but their presence lingered like a shadow. Inside the command center, preparations for expansion and defense were ongoing. Humans and Xipherians worked side by side, sharing knowledge and constructing new systems that combined their technologies. Elias observed the activity, feeling pride and concern in equal measure. The frontier was a place of opportunity, but it was also unforgiving. One mistake could undo all the progress they had made. "Commander," one of the human engineers called, "the perimeter sensors are picking up unusual readings near the northern ridge." Elias straightened. Rex growled softly, tail low, ears twitching. "Show me," Elias said. Zyra clicked softly, signaling agreement, and they followed the engineer to the monitoring station. The screens displayed strange patterns, energy readings unlike anything they had seen before. The signals pulsed intermittently, almost as if something was observing them, testing their defenses. Elias frowned. This was not random activity. Something intelligent was nearby. Rex sniffed the air, growling again, while Zyra leaned close to the sensors, tapping buttons with its clawed fingers. The aliens' clicks echoed softly, a language of thought and logic that Elias had come to understand. "It's scanning us," Zyra said finally in broken but understandable speech. "They are cautious, learning." Elias nodded. Humans had faced threats before, but the scale of this intelligence was new. They would need strategy, not brute force, to face it. Elias gathered his team. "We don't know their intentions," he said. "But we know they are observing, we prepare carefully, and we act smart. Rex and Zyra will help guide us. Our strength is not just in weapons, it's in understanding and cooperation." The team listened, knowing that on the frontier, intelligence often mattered more than firepower. They decided to investigate the northern ridge. Elias, Zyra, and Rex led a small scout party through narrow paths and rocky outcrops, avoiding open ground. Rex moved ahead, sensing changes in the air, while Zyra analyzed the energy readings from the scanners they carried. Every step was cautious, deliberate, a dance of patience and observation. When they reached the ridge, they found a strange formation, a structure partially buried in rock, covered in faintly glowing symbols. It pulsed with energy, unlike anything the humans or Zypherians had built. Rex growled softly, sensing its intelligence. Zyra tapped the surface carefully, and the symbols shifted, responding to the alien's touch. Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. This was a contact point, a signal hub, and possibly the source of the unknown entity's intelligence. As they examined it, the air shimmered and a presence materialized before them. It was not solid, not fully visible, yet it radiated awareness. A voice resonated in their minds. "You have learned well. You survive with knowledge, cooperation, and courage, but the frontier tests all who dwell here. Danger approaches faster than you anticipate." Elias exchanged a glance with Zyra. The alien clicked softly, translating the meaning into a simpler form for them. Rex growled, but not aggressively, more like a warning. The presence was aware of them, intelligent and assessing. Elias realized that their survival depended on communication, not confrontation. "We come in peace," Elias said aloud, focusing on projecting calmness. "We seek understanding, not conflict." The presence pulsed brighter, and the symbols on the structure shifted, forming patterns that conveyed agreement. Elias felt relief, but also knew they were far from safe. Knowledge brought responsibility, and responsibility carried risk. Over the next days, Elias, Zyra, and Rex worked tirelessly to understand the new technology. The structure was a repository of knowledge, containing star maps, data about civilizations, and warnings of cosmic events that could threaten life in the sector. The more they learned, the clearer it became that the unknown presence had chosen them as stewards of this knowledge. Humans, Zypherians, and their loyal companion were now responsible for understanding threats before they arrived. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, an alert sounded from the settlement sensors. Multiple energy readings approached rapidly, moving in patterns that indicated intelligence and coordination. Elia's heart pounded. Rex growled low, tail stiff, while Zyra clicked in rapid sequences, signaling concern. "They are coming," Zyra said. "We must prepare," Elias nodded. Humans and Zypherians worked quickly, reinforcing barriers, deploying scouts, and coordinating defense strategies. This time, they did not rely solely on weapons. They relied on prediction, movement, and anticipation. Rex ran along the perimeter, alerting the team to any anomalies. As the unknown ships appeared over the ridge, Elias and his team observed their behavior. The entities did not attack immediately. They scanned, observed, and tested. Elias realized that these beings valued intelligence and problem-solving. Aggression would provoke them, but clever strategy and adaptation could earn their respect. Elias formulated a plan. Using the knowledge from the newly discovered structure, they deployed decoy signals and traps, guiding the ships into specific paths that revealed their intentions without confrontation. Zyra's guidance and Rex's instincts were crucial. They moved through the terrain, adjusting in real time, anticipating responses from the unknown intelligence. Hours passed, tense and deliberate. The unknown ships followed the guided paths, reacting to human strategy. Elias felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was not just survival, it was proof of what humans could accomplish when they combined courage, intelligence, and cooperation with others. Finally, the presence communicated again, a resonance in their minds. "You adapt. You learn, you survive. We recognize your efforts. Continue and your frontier will thrive." The ships withdrew, leaving the settlement untouched. Elias exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. Zyra clicked softly, a sound of respect and satisfaction, while Rex barked once, tail wagging proudly. In the following weeks, the settlement flourished. Humans and Zypherians continued to learn from one another, and the frontier became a center of exploration, cooperation, and intelligence. Elias reflected on the journey, from finding the wounded Zypherian to facing unknown entities, and realized how far they had come. They had survived not by strength alone, but by empathy, creativity, and trust. Rex became more than a companion. He was a symbol of loyalty and courage, a bridge between species and a guide through danger. Zyra had become an ambassador, a teacher, and a friend, showing that cooperation could overcome fear and uncertainty. Elias knew that the frontier would continue to challenge them, but he also knew that humans, guided by intelligence and spirit, could rise to any occasion. One night, Elias, Zyra, and Rex stood on the ridge overlooking the settlement, watching the stars. The unknown entities were gone, but the lessons remained. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of mysteries, yet humanity had proven that with courage, insight, and alliances they could thrive. Elias placed a hand on Rex's head. "We've done well, boy. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Rex barked once, affirming their partnership. Zyra clicked in agreement, and together they looked out over the frontier. The wind carried the scent of dust and metal, and the night sky shimmered with possibilities. Elias knew that the frontier was not just a place of survival. It was a place of discovery, growth, and courage. Humanity had risen, not through force, but through understanding, ingenuity, and the strength of bonds between beings. And as the stars twinkled above, Elias felt a deep sense of hope. The frontier had tested them, challenged them, and changed them, but they had survived. They had learned, adapted, and thrived. And in that truth lay the greatest victory of all, the enduring spirit of humanity, guiding them forward, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The night was calm, but the frontier was alive. Somewhere beyond the horizon, challenges waited. Yet Elias, Zyra, and Rex were ready. Together they had proven that courage, intelligence, and loyalty could overcome the unknown. And in that knowledge they found strength, not just for survival, but for greatness, not to be underestimated. In the end, it was not technology or weapons that saved them. It was the human spirit, the bonds between species, and the courage to face the unknown with hope. And in that truth, Elias found the greatest victory of all.